As a professional, I just cannot always be on the same page with the government, at least in the present scenario. As a sensible professional, I just cannot afford to rejoice on the miseries of the taxpayers in the wake of such impracticable changes. हाँ, ईमानदारी से कहूं तो मैं इस बात से पूर्ण रूप से सहमत हूं कि इस तरह तो इनकम टैक्स के प्रावधानों को और भी जटिल बना दिया गया है. Provisions have been made rather more complicated in the name of simplification. आप मेरी बात को ध्यान में रखिएगा. भविष्य में इन प्रावधानों को लेकर विवाद होना लाजमी. Honestly speaking, I personally think it's a sort of mockery with the poor taxpayers. The legislators were always seen to be making the provisions more and more complicated under the pretext of the so-called simplification. And this legacy has been persistently carried on in this budget too. Friends, a very good morning to all of you. My videos are the products of research-based deep study. Support of my viewers is the lone driving force in my journey to this process of knowledge sharing. May I therefore request my viewers to extend their affectionate support in this endeavor of mine. Friends, there have been some very important changes in the income tax provisions in the recent budget that was presented on 23rd of July 2024. Most of you may be aware that capital assets are classified as A. Long-term capital assets and B. Short-term capital assets. Whether an asset is a long-term capital asset or a short-term capital asset, it is determined by the period of its holding. Let me clarify it further. Assets which are held for a lesser period of holding can be defined as short-term capital asset. And similarly, the assets which are held for a greater or longer period of holding can be defined as long-term capital asset. Let me move a little bit further. As you can rightfully construe, the income generated from a short-term capital asset shall be considered as short-term capital gain, and similarly income generated from a long-term capital asset shall be considered as a long-term capital gain. Right? I think so far so good. Now let me extend it further. There are different holding periods for different class of assets. Given the fact now, we need to find out what are different classes of holding periods. Let us first examine the existing provision related to holding period. Friends, the existing holding periods till date used to be divided into three parts as per the nature of the class of the asset, and they are A. 12 months, B. 24 months, and finally C. 36 months. But then, after this budget amendment, now there will be just two holding periods, that is A. 12 months for all listed securities and B. 24 months for all other assets. बजट अमेंडमेंट के पश्चात अब मात्र दो होल्डिंग पीरियड ही रहेंगे, 12 months और 24 months. Friends, as we all know, section 2 subsection 14 defines the term capital asset. Further, section 2 subsection 42 capital A defines the class of capital asset which falls into the category of short-term capital gain. Similarly, section 2 subsection 29 AA defines the term long-term capital gain. As a matter of fact, if a capital asset is not classified as short-term capital asset, then it has to be a long-term capital asset. As such, if there is a change in the provisions of short-term capital gain, it will automatically impact the provisions of long-term capital gain too. So, any amendment in section 2 subsection 42 capital A does not call for any change in section 229EE because it is implied, it is automatic. Friends, why so much of hullabaloo in the name of budget amendments? Friends, as a matter of fact, there had been sea changes in the provisions of section 242A, modified position of short-term capital assets after this amendment are: A. The holding period for the following assets will be 12 months. Earlier it was 36 months in case of units of debts-oriented mutual fund, both listed and unlisted. Now it is: number 1. Listed securities, meaning shares, bonds, debentures, stocks, etc. Number 2. Units of UTI, both listed and unlisted. Number 3. Units of equity-oriented funds, both listed and unlisted. Number 4. Zero coupon bonds, both listed and unlisted. In a nutshell, we can say that holding period for the listed equity shares and the units of listed business trust will be 12 months. B. The holding period for all other assets will be 24 months. Which assets? Namely, unlisted securities, meaning unlisted shares, unlisted debentures, bonds, stocks, etc. Number 2. Gold, silver or other precious metals. And finally, immovable property. Let me sum up the whole thing for the benefit of the viewers. Holding period only for the listed equity shares and the units of the listed business trust shall be of 12 months, and for the rest of the assets it will be 24 months. I repeat once again, holding period for the listed equity shares and units of the listed business trust shall be 12 months, and for rest of the assets it will be 24 months. So far so good. Now let me explain the provisions related to the indexation benefit. Friends, there have been significant changes in the indexation provisions too. After this amendment, the position will be that the indexation benefits shall no more be available except in a specific case. Before I come down to the specific case, let me tell you a few key points pertaining to indexation benefit. A. Aforesaid indexation benefit stands discontinued from the date of presentation of this budget. In short, the indexation benefit shall not be available if the asset is transferred after 23rd July 2024. इंडेक्सेशन बेनिफिट को 23/7/24 से निरस्त कर दिया गया है. B. Long term capital gain will be calculated after deducting cost of acquisition, cost of improvement and expenditure on transfer. Long term capital gain प्राप्त करने हेतु cost of acquisition, cost of improvement and transfer expenditure को डिडक्ट करना होगा. Tax on long term capital gain is reduced from 20% to 12.5%. टैक्स रेट को 20% से घटाकर 12.5% कर दिया गया. Now let me explain the different rates of taxes which will be applicable to different class of assets. What are different rates of taxes? Friends, rates are classified as per the nature of the assets, that is tax for short-term capital gain and tax for long-term capital gain. Now, short-term capital gain tax rate is defined under section 111A. This section covers the rate of tax on STCG arising on transfer of STT paid equity shares, unit of equity oriented mutual fund and unit of a business trust. Tax rate has been increased from 15 to 20% in these cases. शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल गेन के टैक्स रेट को 15% से बढ़ाकर 20% कर दिया गया है. फ्रेंड्स, लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन टैक्स रेट इज डिफाइंड अंडर सेक्शन 112 and under section 112 capital A. The existing rate of tax on LTCG is 10% for STT paid listed equity shares, units of equity oriented fund and business trust under section 112 capital A, and for other assets it is 20% with indexation benefit under section 112. Rate of tax on long-term capital gain has also been rationalized. As such, the earlier rate of 10% and 20% stated in section 112 and section 112A have been rationalized to a single point rate of 12.5%. वर्तमान में लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन के केस में टैक्स रेट 10% और 20% है। इस दो अलग अलग टैक्स रेट के स्थान पर अब एक सिंगल रेट कर दिया गया है, अ सिंगल रेट ऑफ 20%। संक्षेप में कहें तो इस बजट में STCG टैक्स रेट को 15% तथा LTCG टैक्स रेट को 12.5% कर दिया गया है। Simultaneously, with rationalization of rate to 12.5%, indexation benefit, otherwise available under second proviso to section 48, have been removed for calculation of any long-term capital gains, which is presently available for property, gold, and other unlisted assets. This will ease computation of capital gain for the taxpayers and the tax administration. अर्थात साथ ही इस बजट में कैपिटल गेन इंडेक्सेशन बेनिफिट को भी निरस्त कर दिया गया है। हालांकि परिवर्तित काल में बजट प्रस्तुति के पश्चात फर्दर मॉडिफिकेशन के द्वारा इंडेक्सेशन बेनिफिट को इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी के केस में परिवर्तित रूप से पुनः स्थापित कर दिया गया इन अ लिमिटेड एक्सटेंट। इसकी परिचर्चा मैं बाद में जरा विस्तार से करूंगा। लेट अस नाउ try to understand the proposed changes in tax on LTCG in a detailed manner. The rate of long-term capital gains under provisions of various sections of the Act is proposed to be 12.5% in respect of all category of assets without the benefit of indexation. I repeat, without the benefit of indexation. However, there is one exception. Under the following class of transfers, long-term capital gain has to be calculated twice under two different methods. A. Transfer of any LTCA before 23rd of July 2024, and B. Transfer of house property acquired before 23/7/2024. अब इन संशोधनों को जरा विस्तार से समझने का प्रयास करते हैं। लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन टैक्स के विभिन्न दरों को परिवर्तित कर अब एक सिंगल रेट कर दिया गया है, जो कि 12.5% है। इंडेक्सेशन बेनिफिट अब साधारणतः प्राप्त नहीं होगा, सिवाय कुछ अपवाद स्वरूप परिस्थितियों के। ये कौन से अपवाद हैं? पहला, यदि लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल एसेट 23 जुलाई 2024 के पूर्व ट्रांसफर यानी कि सेल किया गया हो, अथवा दूसरा, यदि लॉन्ग टर्म इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी से हाउस प्रॉपर्टी 23 जुलाई 2024 के पूर्व एक्वायर किया गया हो, वह फिर चाहे परचेज किया गया हो या कंस्ट्रक्ट या फिर गिफ्ट के रूप में प्राप्त किया गया हो, या फिर विल वसीयत के द्वारा ही क्यों न हासिल किया गया हो। इन सभी परिस्थितियों में प्राप्त मकान के विक्रय पर इंडेक्सेशन बेनिफिट प्राप्त होता रहेगा, बशर्ते वह मकान दिनांक 23/7/24 के पूर्व प्राप्त किया गया हो। नाउ एज वी कैन मेक आउट, टैक्स ऑन लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन फ्रॉम सेल ऑफ हाउस under the above two circumstances, as I mentioned earlier, has to be calculated twice. We can say under two different methods. Under the first method, tax has to be calculated at 12.5% without any indexation benefit. And under the second method, tax has to be calculated at 20% after giving effect to indexation benefit. We can say with the indexation benefit. Any excess of tax calculated in the first method over the second method has to be ignored. Let me repeat here once again. This comparison of tax calculated under the above two methods of 12.5% without indexation benefit and secondly 20% with indexation benefit shall be applicable in case of the above mentioned two circumstances only. Namely, A. If transfer has happened of any LTCA before 23rd of July 2024 and secondly, if the transfer of a house property takes place which has been acquired before 23rd of July 2024. So far so right? Now let us discuss about the basic exemption available under section 112 capital A. A basic exemption of rupees 1 lakh was available under section 112 capital A on long-term capital gain. This exemption limit has been increased from 1 lakh rupees to 1.25 lakh rupees with effect from 23rd of July 2024. That is the day of presentation of this budget. The net effect is that the basic exemption on LTCG happening before 23rd July 2024 shall be rupees 1 lakh and on and after 23rd of July 2024 it shall be rupees 1.25 lakh. But the aggregate sum of exemption in the entire financial year 2024-25 shall in any case not exceed rupees 1.25 lakh. इस बजट के अंतर्गत सेक्शन 112 कैपिटल ए के अंतर्गत उपलब्ध बेसिक एग्जम्पशन को 1 लाख से बढ़ाकर 1.25 लाख कर दिया गया. A bit too complicated, no? Yes, agreed. Honestly speaking, I personally think it's a sort of mockery with the poor taxpayers. The legislators were always seen to be making the provisions more and more complicated under the pretext of the so-called simplification. And this legacy has been persistently carried on in this budget too. As a professional, I just cannot always be on the same page with the government, at least in the present scenario. As a sensible professional, I just cannot afford to rejoice on the miseries of the taxpayers in the wake of such impracticable changes. हाँ, ईमानदारी से कहूँ तो मैं इस बात से पूर्ण रूप से सहमत हूँ कि इस तरह तो इनकम टैक्स के प्रावधानों को और भी जटिल बना दिया गया है. Provisions have been made rather more complicated in the name of simplification. आप मेरी बात को ध्यान में रखिएगा. भविष्य में इन प्रावधानों को लेकर विवाद होना लाजमी. Let us now sum up the amended tax structure. A. Now there will be only two holding periods, 12 months and 24 months. For listed equity shares and units of listed business trust, it will be 12 months. And for all other assets, it will be 24 months. अब सिर्फ दो ही होल्डिंग पीरियड्स होगा, 12 months and 24 months. लिस्टेड इक्विटी शेयर्स एंड यूनिट्स ऑफ लिस्टेड बिजनेस ट्रस्ट के केस में 12 months और शेष सभी केस में 24 months. Next, for STT paid listed shares, bonds and debentures, the long-term capital gain tax rate shall be reduced to 12.5%. That is under section 112 capital A. STT paid listed shares, bonds and debentures के लिए LTCG टैक्स की दर 12.5% होगी. Next, any income on transfer of the unlisted bonds, unlisted debentures and specified mutual fund shall henceforth be treated as short-term capital gain under section 50AA and shall be taxed at the slab rate. That is the normal rate. Doesn't matter whether it's a long term or short term. Unlisted bonds अनलिस्टेड डिवेंचर्स एवं स्पेसिफाइड म्यूचुअल फंड के ट्रांसफर को सेक्शन 50AA के अंतर्गत शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल गेन ही माना जाएगा। नेक्स्ट, द रेट ऑफ टैक्स ऑन शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल गेन विल नाउ बी 20% इन ऑल अदर केसेस। अन्य सभी शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल गेन पर टैक्स की दर 20% ही रहेगी। नेक्स्ट, द रेट ऑफ टैक्स ऑन लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन will be 12.5% with no indexation benefit, barring a few exceptional circumstances, where the rate will be 20%. कुछ असामान्य परिस्थितियों को छोड़कर लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन पर टैक्स की दर 12.5% रहेगी। इन परिस्थितियों का जिक्र पहले हम कर चुके हैं। Next, the SSE will have an option to avail the benefit of indexation and pay a tax at the rate of 20% on long-term capital gain on transfer of any long-term capital asset happening before 23rd July 2024. Long-term capital asset का 23/7/24 के पूर्व ट्रांसफर करने पर करदाता को 20% की दर से टैक्स पे करना होगा। हालांकि उसे इस केस में इंडेक्सेशन बेनिफिट भी प्राप्त होता रहेगा। नेक्स्ट, ऑन अ सिमिलर लाइन, the SSE will have an option to avail the benefit of indexation and pay a tax at the rate of 20% on long-term capital gain on transfer of immovable property taking place on or after 23rd of July 2024. Long-term house property का 23/7/24 या उसके पश्चात ट्रांसफर करने पर करदाता को इंडेक्सेशन बेनिफिट के साथ 20% की दर से टैक्स पे करना होगा। इस अवस्था में वह अगर चाहे तो इंडेक्सेशन बेनिफिट क्लेम नहीं कर 12.5% की दर से भी कर अदा कर सकता है। लेट मी रीइटरेट, द इफेक्टिव डेट ऑफ दीज अमेंडमेंट्स आर 23rd of July 2024। ये सभी संशोधन 23/7/24 से लागू होगा। लास्ट पॉइंट, एग्जेम्पशन अंडर सेक्शन 54 to 54GB will remain unchanged. Having said that, I would like to draw your attention to the newly incorporated Proviso 2 of Section 112. Let me read out the Proviso once for the sake of understanding. Proviso 2 of Section 112 provides that in case of transfer of immovable property, any excess of A. income tax calculated at the rate of 12.5% without any indexation benefit over B, the old rate of 20% with indexation benefit shall be completely ignored. In a nutshell, rebate, if any, on account of indexation benefit shall be allowable only from the tax on capital gain and not from the income from capital gain. So the income from capital gain henceforth will be considered as the income without allowing the benefit of indexation from the financial year 24-25 onward, except for the fact that indexation benefit shall be available in case of transfer of long-term capital asset which takes place before 23rd July 24. Friends, let me try to simplify it further. That for FY 24-25, long-term capital gain has to be calculated in two parts. Firstly, transfer happening between 1/4/24 to 22/7/24, wherein LTCG shall be calculated with indexation benefit, of course. Secondly, transfer happening between 23/7/24, that is day of the presentation of the budget, to 31/3/25, wherein LTCG shall be calculated without the indexation benefit. Let us try to understand the whole thing with the help of several illustrations. Illustration 1. Let us assume A is a resident. He has purchased a house property, say on 1st of May 2001, for a sum of rupees 10 lakhs. He sold the same on 1st of August 24. for rupees 40 lakhs. His income from the head, capital gain, that is the long-term capital gain, will be calculated as under. Consideration rupees 40 lakhs as we know, less cost of acquisition rupees 10 lakhs. The long-term capital gain will be 30 lakhs. Tax on such long-term capital gain at the rate of 12.5% will be 3.75 lakhs, earmarked as A. Now let us calculate the tax as per the amended provision. For that purpose, at first we need to calculate the LTCG with indexation. Here the consideration is 40 lakhs, less index cost rupees 10 lakh multiplied by 363 divided by 100, that is the indexation, capital indexation, that will come to 36.3 lakhs. The long-term capital gain in this case will be 3.7 lakhs. We earmark it as AA. Tax on LTCG at a rate of 20% hence will be 74,000. We earmark it as B. Now excess of A over B, that is 3,75,000 over 74,000, that is 3,01,000 rupees. We earmark it as C. As per the second proviso to section 112(1), this excess shall be ignored while calculating the net tax on LTCG. As such, the net tax on LTCG will be tax on LTCG as per amended rate of 12.5% A, 3,75,000, less excess of A over B, that is say C, to be ignored, rupees 3,01,000. The net tax on LTCG in this case will be rupees 74,000 only. We earmark it as D. Now let us come down to illustration 2. Here in the given case, if A wants to buy another house after the sale of the first house to claim the benefit under section 54, he needs to invest a sum of rupees 30 lakhs to avoid the payment of any tax. As per the earlier provision, A could have completely avoided the payment of any tax by merely investing a sum of rupees 3.7 lakh only. Refer to the calculation AA here in above. Let us now look into the matter from a different perspective. What will happen in case A decides to invest rupees 3.7 lakhs only instead of rupees 30 lakhs towards purchase of a residential house? His income from the head, capital gain, say a long-term capital gain, will be calculated like this. Consideration, as we know, is rupees 40 lakhs. We deduct cost of acquisition of rupees 10 lakh. Thus we derive the long-term capital gain of rupees 30 lakhs. Now we deduct the purchase of residential house of rupees 3.7 lakh out of this. Thus we arrive at net long-term capital gain of rupees 26.3 lakhs. That is 30 lakhs as reduced by 3.7 lakhs. Now we calculate tax on this LTCG of rupees 26.3 lakh at the rate of 12.5%. It is rupees 3,28,750. We earmark it as E. Now we come down to the third illustration. After having understood the things to this extent, let us now further add to our knowledge. Let us now consider a different scenario. Let us assume B is a resident. He has purchased a house on 1st of May 2001, say for rupees 100 crores. He sold the same on 1st of August 2024, that is after the presentation of the budget, for rupees 400 crore. His income from the head, capital gain, that is long-term capital gain, will naturally be rupees 300 crore. Now, to what extent can he reduce his tax liability by virtue of a tax planning? Let us now have a look to the forthcoming solution. Consideration here is 400 Cr with reduced cost of acquisition 100 Cr. Thus, the long-term capital gain we derive is 300 Cr, 400 minus 100 Cr. Now we deduct the exemptions that can be claimed in this case. A. Residential house, say purchased for rupees 20 crore, but the max deduction allowable under section 54 is rupees 10 Cr only. So we claim a deduction under section 54 for 10 Cr. B. Second deduction or exemption is towards investment under section 54 EC bonds. Say we make an investment of 10 Cr, but the maximum deduction allowable under section 54 EC we know is 50 lakhs only. So the total deduction that can be availed in this case is 10.5 Cr only. Hence, the net long-term capital gain will be 289.5 Cr. That is 300 Cr originally calculated as long-term capital gain. Out of that, we deducted the total of the exemption 10.5 Cr. The net long-term capital gain will be 289.5 Cr. And the tax on this LTCG will be at the rate of 12.5%. Let me calculate. It will be rupees 3,61,875. I'm mistaken. I make amends. It will be rupees 3.61875 Cr. We earmark it as F. Let us now endeavor to calculate the tax as per the amended provision. For that purpose, at first we need to calculate the LTCG with indexation. Consideration, as we know, is 400 Cr. We deduct index cost 100 Cr multiplied by 363 divided by 100. That is the indexation. That will work out to 363 Cr. Out of this 400 Cr, we deduct 363 Cr. We are landed up with long-term capital gain of rupees 37 Cr. We earmark it as FF. Now we claim the exemptions that can be available in this case. A. Residential house purchased for rupees 20 crore, that we know. The max deduction allowable under section 54 is 10 Cr. B. Investment under section 54 EC bond. Say we made an investment of rupees 10 crore. Max deduction allowable is only 50 lakhs. So we deduct 10 crore 50 lakhs, that is the maximum deduction available. We deduct it from this capital gain of rupees 37 Cr. Long-term capital gain now comes to 26.5 Cr. We calculate the tax on this long-term capital gain of 26.5 Cr at the rate of 20%. That will be, it will be 5.3 Cr. We designate it as G. Now the excess of F over G, that is 3.61875 minus 5.3 Cr, will be nil. That has to be taken as nil because excess has to be ignored. So the excess amount that has to be considered in this case will be nil. We consider it as H. Here I would like to mention about an arguably second view that is currently in vogue. According to this somewhat different interpretation, exemptions under section 54 to section 54 GB can be claimed only against such long-term capital gain which is not subjected to indexation benefit. This is the second view. As per this view, exemption of rupees 10.5 crore can be available against the capital gain of rupees 300 crore and not against the adjusted LTCG of rupees 37 crore. As per the second proviso to section 112 subsection 1, the excess, if any, shall be ignored while calculating the net tax on LTCG. This is as per the amendment. As such, B's net tax liability on LTCG will be like tax on LTCG as per the new rate of 12.5% is rupees 3.61875 crore, that is F. We deduct excess of F over C, say H, that has to be ignored. Hence, it is subtracted, that will work out to 0. We earmark it as H. The final result is that the net tax on LTCG will be rupees 3.61875 crore only. Now, a few words about amendment in section 55, subsection 2, that is grandfathering of the provisions. Section 55, subsection 2 was amended to deal with the anomaly of valuation of the cost of acquisition of unlisted shares. I repeat, unlisted shares issued before 31/1/2018. To be specific, amendment has been made to subsection 3 of clause small a of explanation to clause AC of subsection 2 of section 55. Section 55 subsection 2 में 31 जनवरी 2018 के पूर्व इशू किए गए अनलिस्टेड शेयर्स के कॉस्ट ऑफ एक्विजिशन संबंधित विसंगतियों को दूर करने के लिए आवश्यक संशोधन किए गए हैं. Finally, a few words about the changes in the security transaction tax rates on trading of securities. The STT rate on option trading has been increased from 0.0625% to 0.1%. On future trading, rate has been increased from 0.0125% to 0.02%. The rate of STT on delivery trades in equity shares will stay at existing rate of 0.1% on both purchase and sale of transactions. These changes will be effective from 1st of October 2024. सिक्योरिटी ट्रांजैक्शन टैक्स रेट्स में बदलाव कर उसे ऑप्शन ट्रेडिंग के केस में 0.0625% से बढ़ाकर 0.1% कर दिया गया है तथा इसी प्रकार फ्यूचर ट्रेडिंग के केस में इसे बढ़ाकर 0.0125% से बढ़ाकर 0.2% कर दिया गया. Friends, with this, the final wrap. But before rounding off the rituals, I request you to like, share and subscribe by this video. Please send your comments. Yeah, I am waiting for your comments. Please follow me in the next video. Thank you.
Please like my Pop's video. Yeah, please like my Pop's video.